Welcome back, Aimee.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yes, so we have some new and exciting news that you'd like to share.
Yeah, sure. I have a new book coming out. It'll be out in mid-June of this year, 2000, what are we, 21? And it's called The Egg Quality Diet. And it's all about, it's basically 100-day menu shopping list meal plan that is designed to help balance your hormones, reduce inflammation, and improve the quality of your eggs. And I'm basing it off of, I've written a couple books. Obviously, I wrote Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. There is a diet in my book called Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. And then I went on to write Body Belief after that, which was more about autoimmunity and managing inflammation. And what I discovered over the years between the two diets is that there's just a certain population of women that do much better on a, if you will, a stronger anti-inflammatory diet than what is mapped out in my book, Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. And so I felt called to, and over the years too, like I've developed a lot of programs and we're reaching people online, and I have menus and shopping lists and meal plans for women to follow this kind of diet. And so I thought, why not bring that to the masses, if you will, in this 100-day eating plan. So I'm very excited about it. And I think it's also just so different than anything else that's out there, because most people, it's just kind of like a standard paleo style diet, I think, or Mediterranean style diet. And I think we're missing a lot, especially knowing that these inflammatory conditions or autoimmune conditions exist and are impacting fertility, things like endometriosis or PCOS or premature ovarian insufficiency, or women that are going through multiple rounds of failed fertility treatments, not getting any blastocysts or good quality embryos, that like we're missing something, and so when I sat back and like looked at all the things I was doing and all the things that are out there, like I kind of came up with this, this list of the things why I think the general fertility diet out there is not working. That it can be too general, right? It's not specific enough. So like in this book, I'm super specific. Like you legit have menu. You have a food plan for 100 days, like 100 days. Of every single day, I give you breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and it's all balanced for macronutrients that in research we've seen the best macronutrients for fertility. And it's calorically balanced, like giving you all the things that you need. So I'm finding, when I went through the literature, it's like most diets out there are just too general. And many women following the diets don't get the right macros, like I was saying. And so, they're not eating, I see it all the time in my practice. You probably see the same thing. It's like, they just don't eat enough protein. And most women are like hitting like 30% protein. And it's like, well, the research shows if you get your macros, a little higher, 30 grams of protein was what I meant to say. If you get your macros a little higher to like 80 grams of protein a day, fertility outcomes dramatically improve. Many women who go gluten-free still eat too many processed packaged gluten-free sugar laden
That's such
food,
a good point.
right?
That's something that people miss. Yes.
They're like, I'm gluten-free. And then you ask them what their diet is. And they're like, I have a gluten-free blueberry muffin every single day. And then I have gluten-free bread. And then I have gluten-free pasta. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's way too many processed gluten-free grains. And the other thing too that I see all the time is many women, like they'll come to me and they're like, I'm following your diet. Like I've been on the Yes, You Can Get Pregnant diet for a year now. And I feel better. And this and this and this has shifted, but I still have like PMS or heavy periods or clots with my periods, or I had miscarriages. I still have brain fog, headaches, skin issues, gas, bloating, irregular bowel movements. And so to me, then like something's still not working. Then like, that's how I do my intake, is like, I look at what I call all the kinks in the system or the red flags. That's how then I start to figure out like, okay, we need to tweak this and then tweak that, and then fertility should thrive. And so a lot of women are coming and they're like, yeah, I'm doing all the diet stuff, and they're still suffering, right? They still have a lot of signs and symptoms of inflammation. And then the other thing too, that like, it's becoming more and more popular to talk about, but a lot of the diets that are out there that are published at the very least are not talking about gut dysbiosis. and the impact like nutritional deficiencies are having on hormones and fertility and egg quality. And what really separates the egg quality diet is that it is an elimination diet, which there's not I don't know of a single elimination diet out there for fertility. I think when you go to like a functional medicine doctor or a naturopathic doctor, a lot of times they'll put you on an elimination diet. But I think it's so key because I literally take your hand, I walk you through, like there's there's different phases. Phase 1 is where we slowly remove all the foods. Phase 2 is where we like eat just super clean for a couple weeks. And then phase 3, we start to add things back in. Phase 4, we add even more back in. But the elimination diet is so important because some women have reactions to like nuts and seeds and they had no idea. Other women have no reaction to gluten and they didn't know. Do you know what I mean? And they can actually do fermented sprouted grains and they're okay. Some women can't touch them, right? Some women can do rice, some women can do popcorn, some women can't. So to figure out exactly the right, so I think that's so important because
it is
mentally too, right? We see these patients and my heart breaks for them. They're doing everything they possibly can and it's still not working. And then they start to get very frustrated and pissed off at the diet. And it's like, well, what about if we actually figured out the exact right diet for you? And so I walk them through, like I said, an elimination diet in this book, and then give them a roadmap on when to start reintroducing foods and that they get to choose what they reintroduce. So you make your own list of 10 to 20 foods that you miss. And I show you exactly what to do over the next, it'll take like a month or two to reintroduce 10 to 20 foods if you do it properly, which I strongly recommend. And then they can figure out exactly what works for their body, which I think is very empowering. And I do that privately with my coaching clients, like whether my associates are coaching with them or I'm coaching with them or their clinic clients. This is how I run the show now. So I might as well like bring that to the public because I think there's confusion of like, oh, which diet of Aimee should I follow? Am I autoimmune or am I, yes, you can get pregnant? We have that question all the time. Like, oh, I'm on the body belief diet. I'm on the yes, you can get pregnant diet. Which one? So I went and just kind of, took all the things I've learned, tweaked it. And also what I'm seeing clinically work to really help improve egg quality, balance hormones, and reduce inflammation. Like you should be able to do all three at the same time. And really the truth is if you start eating more make the right macronutrients, reduce inflammation, improve gut health, right? Egg quality and hormones should just figure themselves out. So there you have it. So as I say in the book, the egg quality diet solves for all those problems. So you get the meal plans, they're balanced for macros, powerful anti-inflammatory diet, and that will also help heal your gut.
Yes. And two things that are so important. I mean, two things that you really mentioned is, well, number one, if you have reactions to food, then that increases inflammation in your gut and your body. And then it doesn't matter how many nutrients you're taking in because your body's just not going to be able to absorb it. So
and that's it too.
One,
it's like, yeah. And I cut you off. So go ahead. What was number 2?
No. So number 2 is actually getting nutrients. But if you're not able to absorb nutrients, how can you get the nutrients?
Well, that's it. Like that's like one of the pillars I point out in the book is I say many of the diets out there don't stress the fact that you can't out supplement an unbalanced nutrient poor diet. Even more if you don't have optimal digestion, meaning little to no gas or bloat and a healthy formed bowel movement 1 to 2 times a day, you're not absorbing nor getting benefit from those costly supplements. So, right, like I just had a girl, she's been in one of my programs and she's also working with, somebody else out there who does fertility coaching as well. And they put her on all these different supplements and didn't even address diet, like not even a lick of addressing diet. And she still is having like gas and bloating and indigestion because she hasn't totally changed her diet. And I was like, and the one supplement was like, it's like $100 supplement for a month. And I was like, you're honestly wasting your money. Like you can take all the antioxidants in the world and the most expensive ones if you want, but like, if you're not absorbing your nutrition and you still have gas or digestive issues, like you're not having regular bowel movements, you have skin issues, you still have signs of hormonal imbalances, it's just a waste. You need to start absorbing your nutrition first. And that really comes down to gut healing. And so that's really what I'm trying to do with this diet is reduce inflammation, heal the gut. Because the other thing too is if you do continue to eat foods that you have an inflammatory reaction to, your immune system gets triggered. And guess what? Fertility becomes a lot harder, or getting pregnant becomes a lot harder, because there is this magic that happens that we still don't quite understand with the immune system and accepting a pregnancy. And so if you're triggering your immune system on a regular basis with foods that you can't digest or properly break down and absorb, the body is not super hospitable to a pregnancy either. And that's just not talked enough about. But from what I see, my clinical experience, and I've been doing this a really long time, is like when I get those little inflammatory markers to finally go away, and there's like a whole checklist in the book so women can know, and I make them fill it out every week. Every week I have like a set list of things that you're to do. And one of them is like checking in on your symptoms so that we can see things positively shifting. Because I also think that's really empowering as well to say like, okay, yeah, I'm not pregnant yet, but gas and bloat is gone. No more acne,
right.
like all these things are shifting. And it's, I'm not going to lie. I think it's an intense diet, if you will, but not forever. Like I'm really asking for like 4 weeks of hard work. And then the rest is like, you slowly start to reintroduce things and live your life. But again, I've seen it work. I have a ton of testimonials that we put in the beginning of the book of just girls that have tried everything under the sun, and they worked with all the best fertility doctors and did all the best supplements and all the things. And it wasn't working, and that this kind of approach was the last straw that they needed. So it's like, it's great. We'll still incorporate it with all of our acupuncture clients and our Chinese herbs and all of the, supplements. I don't talk in the book, a lot about mindset. Intentionally, like we're actually creating a really valuable resource page that goes with the book where all that is going to be addressed, because I have so much content over the years, from like meditations to lectures and workshops and worksheets. So this book is strictly diet, and then to take it to the next level, you're going to access all of the other information that I have provided for you on the website.
So when you talk about elimination diet, the importance is, and you were talking about reintroducing. So when your body eats certain foods, certain foods you really don't want to reintroduce. If people have a sensitivity.
Never reintroduce lists too. Like
like gluten in certain cases and things like that. Like depending on if they 100%. Have Hashimoto's or But then there's So when you mean because when you eat certain foods all the time, sometimes your body can actually start to have a resistance towards that food. So taking it out of your diet for a little while and then slowly reintroducing, your body won't have as much of a resistance, or will be able to kind of accept it or not have a reaction as much.
Yeah. And I think too, if you reduce inflammation on the broader scale, that then you can have these like exposures to maybe something that is inflammatory, like a nut or a seed, which is really sad to say that those are inflammatory, but they're highly inflammatory, especially when not properly processed or packaged, and especially when eaten too much of, which I know I did back in the day with like paleo. I was eating almonds up the wazoo. And then I started to have like inflammatory, like my eczema got really bad. I couldn't figure it out because my diet, I was no gluten, no dairy. Like my diet couldn't have been better, if you will, but I was eating too many lectin-rich foods, and that was causing me to flare up, or too many beans, and and they're not properly soaked or sprouted. So when you do reduce the inflammation, then you can see, now I can have almonds a couple of times a week, and I'm perfectly fine. I can even have, I don't have Hashimoto's, right? Or an autoimmune condition. So I can have fermented sprouted grains a couple times a week, and I'm like a good quality sourdough that I make. And in my cases where they don't have an active autoimmune condition that we know of, it's a really nice thing to be able to reintroduce, right? So with the elimination diet, you just learn so much about your body. And like I've, a call earlier today, she on her Sunday nights, like we went through the whole diet, we figured out what's going on. And on Sunday nights was like, used to be pizza night. Now she does her like cauliflower pizza, and she adds her like, her her meats and her veggies, and she has a little bit of raw cheese, and it doesn't cause a reaction for her, but she does it once a week and it's her treat. But for years she lived in this, like, I could never, you know what I mean? And I'm one of those people. I mean, yes, you can get pregnant. I say you can have some dairy in moderation as long as it's organic and full fat. And then I realized that for a lot of girls, especially autoimmune girls, like, guess what? You can't, you know what I mean? And a lot of people don't do well on dairy, but some people do. But we don't know that until we actually do this whole elimination diet. And part of the elimination diet too, is there's a lot of bone broth that's recommended in my diet. And that's really to help heal the gut lining too, to help, seal those leaky gut junctions so that you can start absorbing your nutrition and keeping it in your bowels where it belongs instead of into your bloodstream, where then it causes these, immune reactions. And technically speaking, as you heal the gut, you should be able to have certain foods that you maybe couldn't have in the past. And I'm not talking about allergies. Obviously, allergies are a whole different category. We're talking about tolerances.
Yeah.
But I really think the key, and from what just everything I've learned from PCOS to, endometriosis to, quote unquote, poor egg quality, is it's really comes down to inflammation. So if we reduce inflammation, and then I think holding the pregnancy comes down to the immune system being balanced. So if we reduce inflammation and we balance the immune system, things should work out.
Right. So that was what I was going to ask, like, what is, for people who don't really understand what it is, like, what is egg quality, for somebody who is just first learning about this?
So egg quality is how healthy are the eggs in your ovaries, basically, and what kind of child are they going to create? So women who are doing IVF are very familiar with egg quality because, we take the egg out, we fertilize it with the sperm, we let it grow for a couple days. Hopefully it develops into a beautiful blastocyst. And then maybe it goes off for genetic testing, where then you could find out that it's a genetically normal embryo, which are the ones that most likely don't miscarry and bring healthy babies into this world. Women who are trying naturally, I would still rely on the fact that I think nature is very smart. Nature pretty much tends to only fertilize. We would hope eggs that are going to make healthy babies, but there's a lot of things that happen between fertilization and development into that healthy baby. And so recently I had a conversation with Dr. Murhi of the Rejuvenating Fertility Center. And he said, he's a reproductive endocrinologist. And he said, the truth is all your eggs are actually good. None of the eggs in your body are bad. So the center of the egg, which is the nucleus of the cell, contains the 23 chromosomes it's supposed to contain. Every single egg in your body has those. Even when you're like 50 years old and maybe in menopause, you still have eggs in your ovaries. You still have about 1,000 eggs in your ovaries. They go dormant, but you don't run out of eggs. So that's like one thing that people need to know. And two, that all your eggs are actually good. So the nucleus of the eggs is healthy. It's the extracellular fluid that surrounds the egg inside the follicle, that the egg house, they call it. So that's where the egg develops and matures. That extracellular fluid can be filled with like debris and toxins. It just kind of depends on how you live your life and what else is circulating through your body. And so that fluid that surrounds the nucleus, where those 23 chromosomes are, that dictates how that egg is going to divide, how it's going to mature, and especially once it meets the sperm. And then the sperm has its own nucleus and its own cellular debris. And so when the two combine, they technically should be making a 46, a chromosomally healthy, normal child. But based on the extracellular fluid, or I would just say like lifestyle, diet, nutrition, all the toxins in your body or all the inflammation in your body, that will then determine how it develops and whether or not it develops into a chromosomally normal child. And so it really comes down to, for so many women, it's, they get fixated on what their FSH is, what their AMH is, and whether or not their eggs are still good. And so that's why we're calling it the egg quality diet, because the truth is it's really just about improving the quality of every single cell in your body. And that should, and how your body detoxifies itself, how it cleanses itself, and the level of inflammation. And that should then extend itself to every single cell in your body, which then should theoretically help improve your odds of making genetically normal babies. Or even getting pregnant in the first place, because that's the other thing too. If like if all the nucleus is healthy, right, but then the cellular fluid around the nucleus is not healthy, that might then translate to the sperm isn't going to pick that egg because they already know it's bad. The sperm has its own sensory, mechanisms that it can know which is the right egg to implant or not. And so even if you, how would I say, don't know if like your eggs are bad or not, like you haven't done IVF and you haven't gotten the news that you don't have any PGS normals or nothing's making a blastocyst, but you're just trying this naturally, we can assume that maybe we're not getting pregnant because the body's being smart and it hasn't found the right egg to select, or vice versa. The egg hasn't found the right sperm to allow in. And so by improving the cellular health and reducing inflammation, it should create a better scenario for, fertilization and implantation and then growth of a healthy child.
And typically what you'll find is inflammation's one of the big factors that could really hold us back from improving equality.
100%.
Yeah.
And endometriosis, I think it's like upwards of 50% of women with, fertility challenges. It's probably even higher than that, but have endometriosis. And endometriosis is like, it looks just like an autoimmune condition for a lot of times in the body, but it's technically an inflammatory condition. And if you get the inflammation under control, you do see it in those girls, like across the board, egg quality improves, where maybe they were having previously failed IVFs or they were having recurrent pregnancy loss. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing too, of like pregnancy loss, and especially if they're genetically normal, is another sign that the immune system isn't, things aren't happy in the body immune wise and inflammatory wise. So, but you can really tell about, it's like I say in the book too, like, how do you know if inflammation or autoimmunity is impacting your fertility? So I think you've been trying to conceive for 2 or more years without success. You've had more than 1 miscarriage without a live birth in between. You've been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. You have PCOS or premature ovarian. They just changed the terminology, right? It used to be POA, now it's POI, premature ovarian insufficiency, because they used to call it premature ovarian failure, and now they're realizing it's actually not a failure. Things can come back, so we're going to change the word. You have 1 or more copies of MTHFR mutation, you have the COMT and or the IL6 or the FADS genetic mutation, which all these can be found out through the 23andMe is the one I tend to use, and then I run reports for my patients. If you have had repeated failed IVFs, even with genetically tested embryos, and you can't seem to get any genetically normal embryos, or your embryos don't mature to the blastocyst stage when doing fertility treatments. So to me, those are all, and then also, like I said, I have this whole, kinks in your system. I call it the kinks in your system questionnaire in the book, which are other signs of inflammation. And like we touched upon, things like skin issues, eczema and psoriasis to me are always huge red flags of inflammation, gastrointestinal issues, sleep issues, anxiety, isn't a brain fog, not enough energy to get through the day. Like there's some pretty classic symptoms of inflammation in the body. And then, but typically, they're coming to us because they're trying to get pregnant, but then you go through and you look at their, their intake, or you're doing the way we do our intakes from a Chinese medicine perspective. And there's just so many kinks in the system, and you make these changes and you see their health improve, and then really what happens is the way we see it is then chi and blood and
they feel better overall.
They feel better. They get pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, some women it's not as easy. Some women have more work to do. Some women have an inflammatory condition that's hard to get ahead of. Some women have had an inflammatory condition for many years. That's hard to treat. Some women have had Hashimoto's since they were 13. And so we have to peel back the layers of the onion, but we can do it.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is that I think now people are starting to finally realize how important fats are. For a while there, we were afraid of fat and everything was fat free. And I think now we're really shifting. It's becoming like a thing. People are starting to realize how important it is, but it's super important for egg quality. Fat is
There's
like
this
everything.
Interesting. Let me see if I can
find
it. There's an interesting quote that I have in here on the macronutrients. It's freaking fascinating, some of the research I've found. I talk about why an elimination diet is so important for fertility. So scientists have discovered different macronutrient percentages for different health conditions and then blah, blah, blah. When it comes to fertility, women who are trying to conceive seem to be most fertile with a macronutrient breakdown of 45% fat, 30% protein, and 25% carbs. But this is so interesting. So some data suggests that you can even go higher on your fat, up to 60%. Like they're talking about, like if you want to get pregnant later in life, or women, like the populations of that seem to have like pregnancies happening later in life in their culture, like late 40s, even 50s, they eat a ton of fat, which is so fascinating. But this one reproductive endocrinologist, he did a little study in his own clinical practice. So it wasn't like thousands and thousands of women, but definitely, 100 or so women. And he shifted his patients from eating a diet that was nearly 60% carbs. Now, remember, fruit has carbs, beans are high in carbs. So even if you're eating like a healthy diet, you could still be getting a lot of carbs and not be eating like white bread or pasta. So we're not even talking about that. There's carbs in so many. 60% carbs. They only were getting 10% protein and 30% fat to a diet that was 25% carbs, 30% protein, 45% fat. It shifted. They had 4 times the pregnancy success rate.
Oh my God. Wow. That's amazing.
So prior, these women weren't even getting blastocysts. Like, so if they were doing IVF with this guy, nothing, they were getting nothing. Shifted the diet, 4 times the pregnancy success rate.
That's incredible. I mean, can you send me that? Send me that study. That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
So awesome.
It was in Fertility and Sterility. Published in 2012 too. Like you'd think we'd freaking know by now. That was almost 10 years ago. I'm sending it to you right now.
Yeah,
I'm right in front of my
good. But it's fascinating, and we're talking good fats, by the way. Like avocado, coconut,
nuts
oil,
and seeds, even coconut oil, coconut yogurt,
or
coconut milk,
olive
ghee,
oil. Yeah.
Egg yolks, right? So even like bone broth, like such a good source of fat, right?
Amazing.
Like right as we were getting on, right, I had some smoked salmon, which is just cured with salt, 2 eggs, and like a heap of broccoli. I cooked it all in ghee. That's the way you should eat.
Yeah,
I think.
Totally. No, I agree. And it's a much better fuel for your body.
Fat. Oh my God, you feel so much better. You just feel so much better, and your skin glows. Like, I think there's so many benefits to changing your diet to something like this too, beyond just being able to make a baby.
Yeah. And it's funny because now we're finally like wrapping our minds around it, because for a while it was like no fats, it's going to cause heart attacks. And I mean, it really was so ingrained in our psyche that it's like no good.
I know. It's scary. And it's like so much of how we live our life. And I mean, like I said too, there's a lot I don't get into in the book, only because it feels redundant. Like I talk about that other stuff all the time, and it's in my other books. So I just wanted to give people what I think they really want. Like women always say to me, like, oh, you have a menu, like 100 days of what I'm supposed to eat. Like I'll just follow it. That's amazing.
Totally.
Like shopping list, like we got it all. Like we got a ton of recipes in the book. Like it's great. And it's all been tested by so many of my girls. But, obviously the other things that play significant roles is just the toxins we're exposed to on a daily basis. Like our bath, like all of our products, bath, beauty, household products, all of that adds to the cellular debris, which we know is impacting the quality of our health and our life and our fertility. And so, there's so many things that I think we can do to just live better and longer and healthier. And then with that, also be able to make babies. Because I mean, I had a group this morning. We just kicked off a new group for my group coaching, and the women ranged in age from like 31 to 45, and they're all kind of having the same problem. Do you know what I mean? So like, I'm sorry, that can't be all age related. It can't be. And they're also varying. Like one woman who was the oldest in the group had the highest AMH, and the girl who's the youngest had like the second highest, right? But like, that also that doesn't make any sense either. If it's just all age, it actually doesn't correlate whatsoever
Yeah.
with what we see. And I know you see the same thing in your clients. It's like, it doesn't correlate with what we see. And so if we could get away from letting the numbers define us, because it really only
Right.
matters
Oh my God.
doing
Yeah.
IVF, but it's really like, let our health define us, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's the thing too, is that the body, I mean, I think with our work, we learn, I've just learned to really have such faith in the body. The body's amazing.
So smart.
It's brilliant. It knows how to heal itself, and it does. It's resilient.
Yeah. It's so resilient.
Yeah. It's just a matter of taking away those assaults, that the body's
Like
having
minimizing
constantly.
them. And also like and then when you allow yourself to have the assaults, like don't beat yourself up over it, right?
Right.
And I talk about that too in the book of, that I forget what I entitled it, but just like
Being
a word
stressed
on
about being
nourishing
stressed,
you.
or,
Yeah, or
being,
finding peace on this diet, I think is what I say. And so
yeah.
it's like I'm giving you all this information. I understand it's hard to, take it all in, and I'm asking for a lot of changes, but um, you know, you're human. I want you to do your best. And at the very least, like take this information in and then figure out a way to live this way while still being kind to yourself and still experiencing joy. Like if food is or wine is a great joy of yours. Okay, so let's find really good quality,
Mhm.
organic, pesticide-free wine and
Yeah.
have a glass or two a week. Do you know what I mean? Or like
Yeah.
if coffee is your thing, okay, so really good quality coffee. Let's find it. Let's make it
Right.
like a ritual for you. And you love that coffee and you're not walking around all day saying, I have coffee every day. That's why I'm not getting pregnant. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the conversation you have with yourself too really impacts these things. And so I think though, it's really important to empower everyone with this information and this knowledge. And there's just some really cool cutting edge research. I mean, there's research out there showing absolutely we can, if you will, put the word in quotes, but reverse the aging process, and that there is so much we can do for our physiology, regardless of our chronology. So meaning however old we are in years, like our cells can be entirely more youthful and younger.
Mhm.
And this is like, I do think what I'm preaching in this book is basically giving you the framework for a diet like that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so empowering. And the truth is, we are actually a lot more powerful than we think or
We are so
realize.
freaking powerful, and
It's
we give it
beyond.
away. We give it
Totally.
away. Yeah.
Totally. And the thing is, because a lot of people who are, I guess, quote unquote, educated, I mean, listen, a lot of people, I think just science has not seen or discovered just how powerful we are.
I
And we need to
know.
acknowledge that, because there's no way that science knows everything. But
I
now
know.
amazing things are actually being shown to us, which is great. So when we actually do find it, it's awesome, because then it does prove it. But we didn't
Yeah.
know that, right? What
No.
all these things that you're finding now, we didn't know this like 20 years ago.
Well, that's
It
it.
was as
Yeah.
if it never existed.
And like even to like reiterate what I said before too, it's like I have this group of women and they range like almost 20 years or 15 years, and they all have the same problems, quote unquote, if you will, and like their hormones aren't that far off from each other or different. And so you can't just tell me this is about aging.
Yeah.
It's just not, it doesn't actually, like as a previous scientist before I became an acupuncturist, right? Like that makes that doesn't hold any water. It held zero water actually.
Yeah.
Because now you're saying to me, okay, so a 31-year-old has the same problems as a 45-year-old getting pregnant. That actually like completely refutes your whole theory here then.
Mhm.
And she's not an unhealthy 31-year-old, right? She has an inflammatory condition that has gone undiagnosed and
That's it.
mistreated, right?
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, it's just like there's just so much we can do from our own choices every day. But then also, yeah, if we get into the nitty gritty of the mindset too, which again is not actually in this book, but the resource page has a ton of mindset stuff on there. And I know that's an area of expertise for you too. And I love your hypnotherapy work, but it's like to get into that piece and really begin to train our mind, and how we absorb our world and how we take things in, and what we believe about our body and that we can heal.
Yes, and the meaning that we apply. And also, what's interesting is that, through this, I didn't read the book because it's not out, but I'm actually very excited to get it.
You'll get a copy as soon as I can get
Oh
it out to
yay, I'm excited. I'm so excited because
I'm still
it
working
definitely
on
is
edits,
it's a great resource, number one. But also it sounds like you're basically going by cues of the body. The body, it's so
That's it.
intelligent. It will let you know, like, this does not agree with me. I don't feel
That
good.
is it.
Yeah.
That's it. And are you in tune enough to listen, right? Because I do think that's a huge part too, is most people are not connected enough. They're so disconnected, or they're so mad at their body for the ways it's failed them or not doing what they wanted to do. Um, they don't even notice the headache that they walk around with all day long, or
Mhm.
the bloated feeling that they get after each meal at the end, and how much heavier they feel at the end of the day than they do in the beginning of the day, or brain
Mhm.
fog. They're just completely disconnected. So that is, I'm kind of secretly doing that in the book too, by every week having them check in with their symptoms. It's like a way to draw them back into their body, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, people are very disconnected. Even the ones who believe they're super connected. I just think that's always so fascinating too.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Or just like, oh no, my diet's super clean. Like that was one of my girls today, and I was like, okay, so tell me what you're eating. Oh well, like yeah, the last couple of days don't count, because da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, so. And then when she went through her diet, and I mean, this comes up all the time too. Another reason why I wrote it is like, well, I eat super healthy. And then I count up, that they're having like 3 servings of vegetables a day instead of like the recommended 6 to 8. And maybe they're only getting like 40 grams of protein instead of the recommended like at least 70 to 80.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, maybe you're eating the right foods, but then not in the right breakdown. And that's super important too. And we need a lot of vegetables. We do. And it's
We
just the
do.
number one way to detoxify our system.
Yes. And we've all been guilty of this. I mean,
Oh
I
my
know
God.
I have.
I have to
It's
think
so
it
easy to
through
be,
every
right?
day. I think it through. I really
Yeah.
do. Like I like look at my plate now and I'm like, okay, there's my protein. There's my fat. There's
Yeah.
my veg.
And the thing is,
Every,
like journaling is like the best way to actually like look at
I
what you're
agree.
doing. There's no other way. You really need to like really pay attention and like write it down or get
Mhm.
an idea of exactly what you're putting in, because otherwise it's very easy to miss.
That's it. It's super easy to miss. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as the elimination diet goes, I know many people approach it differently. The typical elimination is get rid of everything and slowly introduce one thing at a time, or introduce one thing, get off it, introduce another thing. So how do you do it?
Yeah, I did do some research. I have like a reintroduction protocol from my book Body Belief, but then I went and I looked deeper. A lot of my knowledge on autoimmune paleo comes from Sarah Ballantyne's teachings in her book, The Paleo Approach. I tweaked the diet though from hers, and it's a little more Chinese medicine based, with the
Hmm.
broths and warm cooked foods and things like that. But she, and I kind of looked at everybody's reintroduction guides. I like her reintroduction guide the best, where it's like you have half a serving of the food twice a day, like the first day you reintroduce it. And then if you have a reaction, just flag it. It goes into the reintroduce in 4 weeks category.
Hmm.
No reaction, you can reintroduce a full serving twice a day. The next day, again, if you have a reaction, it goes away. You can't have it anymore until we try again. And because usually what it is the gut just needs more time to heal before it can process that food. It's not that it's a forever you can't have it food.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes it is, but
Right.
or it's just that you need very moderate, like, servings of it. And then if everything goes well after day 2, then you actually wait for like 3 days. You don't have that food that you just reintroduced. You just go back to your life. No other like red flag or kinks come up. That's an okay to have food. And then you try your next food. So you can get a new food in about every 5 or so days if done correctly. Maybe 6 days, but really I think 5 days if you like really do it correctly. And so what I encourage in the book is like once they get to phase 4, well, really towards the end of phase 3, I make a list of like the top 10 to 20 foods you miss, and not like gluten-free bagels. Like, no, like foods. Like I miss
Right.
almonds, I miss, pistachios, I miss rice, I miss almond flour, right?
Hmm.
And so make your list and then we go through one by one because everybody's different. And the way I laid it out in Body Belief too is like for me, I don't eat beans. I've never done well on beans. I can't digest them. They just don't work for me. Never have, never will. I don't miss them. I don't need them in my life. I never
Yeah.
need to reproduce them, right? Some people, can't live without their hummus or whatever it is. And so we'll pick our foods. And so that way you get to craft your own diet. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, that's typically how, from what I've read, that seems to be, I think, a pretty standard way to reintroduce. And you see, and then you can, the foods that maybe you had a reaction to, you try them again in a couple weeks.
Right. Sounds amazing. I mean, it sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds like afterwards you're going to feel a lot more empowered and you're going to have a lot
I'm
more
not gonna lie,
clarity.
it's not super easy, but I also think it's like, I don't know.
It's a
It's
no-brainer.
really setting up a framework for like the rest of
Yeah.
your life, and like, what do you have to lose,
No,
And you learn so
yeah.
much. Even if you did the diet and you don't totally succeed at like all the phases the way I have mapped out, I still think you're going to get a ton of takeaway from it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, for me, at least when I used to eat gluten, I used to eat a lot of foods that I don't eat anymore. And I was exhausted. I was in my 20s and I was tired all the time. Like I literally I couldn't get myself to move after lunch. And I was like, what the heck is
Yeah.
wrong with me? I mean, this is my 20s and now I'm in my 40s and I eat a lot different and I have energy. Like I have more energy in my 40s than I did in my 20s. And it's
Yeah.
all because
Same.
of
I'm the
food.
same
It's
way.
all about
Yeah.
eating the right foods. So you're
100,000%
gonna feel
agree.
so much
Yeah.
better. And the truth is, like once you really do get into a habit, it's just a matter of programming and getting used to the habit. Like the
That's it.
hardest part is the
That's it.
shift. Once you get it and you find out what's right for you, you're just used to it. It just becomes your new normal, and it
It
doesn't
becomes very
really.
easy to stick to too, because it's like, and I encourage it, like go cheat, if you will cheat. I don't like that word, but go and deviate from the plan a little bit. And most people are like, yeah, and I felt like shit.
Totally.
And so I don't ever want to eat that again. Or at the very least, like I'm going to eat this thing that I really miss and know that tomorrow I'm going to be bloated and constipated and probably have a headache and feel hungover. But it's worth it once in a while. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like, it's just, then you just learn so much. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It really is, but it's incredible.
And most people walk around feeling pretty crappy and just accept it. And I think that is just.
They don't know the difference. They don't know the difference. They feel like it's normal. Like I used to feel like it's normal. If I have a pizza, I'm exhausted and I'm bloated and that was just normal. That's just what happens. But I didn't realize, oh my God, like my food is actually draining me instead of giving me energy.
It's actually like an anti-nutrient. It truly is, Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I'm really excited to get this book. So when will it be out for the rest of the listeners?
The rest of the world. I mean, the planned launch date, and who knows what happens between now and then, is June 13th, 2021. So in about 2 months, I guess. Is that right? Oh
is it going to be, well, this is probably going to come out in May. So it's going to be in a month.
Yeah.
A month from
in a
when
month.
people are listening. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said too, we'll have a really valuable resource page that goes along with the book, so you can take deeper dives into the mental, emotional supplements, lifestyle, bath beauty products, that kind of stuff. All those aspects will be there. And then we'll also have some really good like pre-launch goodies, like we'll run a little program for everybody to get into it. So they get, if they pre-order the book. So just, keep an eye out, I'm sure Michelle will be talking about it in some of your things. And then also, just follow me on any of the, Instagram or Facebook, or get on my email list and get access, to some of the goodies that come along with pre-ordering the book.
So how can people find you?
My website's probably the best place, aimeeraupp.com, or Instagram. I'm really active over on Instagram too, at Aimee Raupp.
Yeah, she's got great stories of hope. I would definitely suggest for anybody listening to listen to that, because to me, that's huge. That's like really, it's just food for the soul for people going through the fertility journey. And, because it really does, it gives you hope. I mean, you hear stories, you hear, people with horrible prognosis and, doing amazing. And so for me, I think that it's just so important. We talk about food for the body, and then there's food for the soul.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I love it. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Aimee, for
Well,
coming on
thank you so
today.
much. Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate everybody, yeah, listening to us chat about all things equality and inflammation. So thank you so much.